let's think a little bit more about these tariffs and all this economic uncertainty that's going down. Like, what is the root cause? So, at its core, the president really wants those tariffs because he believes in protectionism, trying to bring jobs back, and as a tool to kind of protect America's soul. That prioritizes short term political wins over evidence based economic policy. Notice how nobody in Trump's cabinet is really pushing back on a lot of things. The Treasury Secretary, the Commerce Secretary, they're kind of yes men. So they were picked because they support him. Challenging the president means you're probably going to get replaced. Loyalty is going to trump experience there. Now, since winning the White House, we've doubled down on policies that are going to energize the supporters, and you get reciprocal tariffs. They sound hostile towards allies like Canada, but it's also kind of like going to boost the image of being somebody who's against like the globalist elite, even at economic cost. Now, the problem is the globalist elite, they've all shorted the stocks and they've got hedge funds. So folks are probably making money as these stocks go down. The people who get hit are middle class retirement accounts and retirees. The guardrails that typically limit presidential power have been weakened. And this past defiance of norms basically normalized bypassing checks and balances. So the Federal Reserve is in an impossible situation. They're trying to manage inflation, but tariffs could actually drive prices up quite a bit. Now, modern trade is really interconnected. The North American auto industry crosses like the borders of Canada and Mexico a whole lot. These tariffs can really mess with those companies. There's a fundamental misunderstanding about tariffs that just never goes viral. They're treated as free money from the US, whereas in reality, Americans are going to pay those in higher costs, higher consumer prices, struggling small businesses, growing deficits from farm subsidies. These are the real consequences we'd end up seeing. Now, when people point these problems out, they can be labeled enemies of the state. We now have a divisive social media rhetoric that's created an environment where economic pain is viewed as a necessary sacrifice. That's going to shield the White House from criticism when things start to backfire or go bad. So you get stuck in a dangerous cycle. Tariffs could lead to inflation, could lead to Fed rate hikes and an economic slowdown, and more protectionism as the solution. And the markets are seeing this too. Now, if you only talk about the tariffs and you never implement them, you can avoid some of those inflationary hits. Then you can actually see deflation from this. So, long term, you're looking at the fragmentation of global trade. America's economic leadership position would start to come down. And the independence of institutions like the Federal Reserve, well, they start to come apart. Congress isn't really going to do a lot of oversight. We do need better public education about the impacts of tariffs. We just don't know. We should be rebuilding our relationships with our allies and our friends. And I don't know, coordinated business advocacy can kind of point out how our supply chains work, but companies are kind of quiet. The economic turbulence we're seeing isn't just bad luck. You've got interconnected factors here: a rigid ideology, weakened institutional checks, political strategy, misunderstanding of global trade, and increased polarization. All of this is creating the perfect economic storm. So we'll see what happens over the summer. I hope we don't slip into a recession.